Hello, good morning, good morning. Happy Wednesday to everybody. I hope everyone is doing well and staying warm, I'm hoping. Just want to thank you guys all for joining us today. So welcome to the Getting Your Affairs in Order educational session. I know that we have quite a few people on here from BC, so we want to definitely welcome you guys to our information session. So my name is Andrea Cox, and I'm going to be your host for this morning. So let me ask the question, how many of us were super excited to join us this morning that you could not even sleep last night? Is there anybody out there? Do you know what? And if you want, you could actually write in the chat. We're going to use the chat today. So if you're one of those, or, you know, I see Julie's hand is up. That's awesome. Welcome, Julie. All right. So a little bit about myself. I am out of Calgary. So I am part of the Getting Your Affairs in Order team. And I work with the families out in Alberta and in BC. I'm double licensed in Alberta. One is with the Alberta Funeral Service Regulatory Board. And pretty much everyone that you're going to be hearing from today is part of the team. And we all kind of wear different hats. So in our first segment, you're going to hear from James Chapman, who was our pre-planner representative out in BC, Okanagan area. And he works with alternatives, funeral and cremation. And James has been helping families for a long time and has lots of valuable information to share. So wait till you hear from him. And he'll be interviewed by Peggy Mass, who runs our Vancouver office. And she's the right hand to our managing director. And while she is his right hand, she is the rest of ours left hand, right hand, and just pretty much everything. So she's awesome. And she is going to be, in fact, most of you might know Peggy because her husband, Patrick, he's actually the representative with Alternatives Funeral Cremation. And he is with the Lower Mainland area. Oh dear, just hold on here. I just realized that it's possible that Peggy might have joined us on the other link there. So Peggy, if it's okay, if you can possibly join in on the other link that you have that you registered with. I'm so sorry, Peggy. I should have taken you off of that one. Sorry, guys. This always doesn't go as smooth as we would like it to go. All right. So Stat has it that 74% of Canadians report having thoughts about death. So are you one of them? Now, when you think about death, are you at peace or are you unsettled? So hang out with us for the next 45 minutes or so, and we'll be able to give you ways to help bring peace of mind to you now, that it will bring peace to your family in the future during that devastating time. Now, for those who are on the call, we're actually going to have a draw later on, and it is a draw for this emergency kit, and it's also a $25 gift card for Amazon. So in total, it's valued at $175. So what's going to happen is at the end, there's going to be a questionnaire that you'll be able to fill out, and that's to help us to help to promote this webinar and just to get your feedback on how this webinar went. And it's more of like an educational system. So let's see, for no further ado, we're just going to have the interview with James and with Peggy.
Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. I have the pleasure today of sitting here with Mr. James Chapman, and I want to tell you a little bit about James. So for the past 34 years, James has been assisting families to make sound and wise decisions regarding end-of-life issues. James says, planning your funeral or cremation ahead of time is the greatest final gift anyone can give. There is no greater feeling, he says, than knowing your affairs are in order. And this became very personal to James when he faced several life-saving cancer-related operations. He muses his words, As I was going under, I couldn't help but smile to myself. With 4 amazing children and 7 grandchildren, he is more motivated than ever to help others share the same peace of mind. Right, James?
Well, thank you, Peggy. It was very kind.
Well, you know, in reading that and in knowing a little bit about you, James, it's so evident to me that, first of all, you're very passionate about what you do. And it's evident to me what keeps you doing what you do. So what I'm interested in at the top of this is to know 34 years ago, how did you get into this? How did this all start with you, with this passion of pre-planning?
All right. Well, thank you there, Peggy. Well, in I think it was November of 1987, I was a young clergy member in a little parish out in Saskatchewan. Everybody loves Saskatchewan. And I was given the privilege of officiating at my first funeral. Family invited me to the funeral home, so I was a little fly on the wall, and I observed what all had to be done. And it was quite an eye-opener. I had no idea that there was so much paperwork, there were so many decisions that had to be made, there were so many bills that had to be paid, and I remember thinking to myself, wow, this family just lost a loved one, and they're having to do all of this. And I thought, there's got to be a better way than this.
Mm-hmm. And you're absolutely right. I think I shared this story with you before, but my parents-in-law passed within 8 years of each other. And, you know, there's so many things that I could say around that, but I will just say that a couple things: making decisions under duress, in the midst of shock and grief and all the drama that comes with that, extremely difficult. And the other thing I would say, and I would share with you very personally, that, you know, when there are lots of family members involved, there are, you know, everybody thinks they know what's right for mom and dad, and everybody's right, right? And unfortunately, in our situation, there are very differing opinions and relationships as a result of that will never be healed.
Wow.
Never be healed. So I'm a big proponent of pre-planning. So today, what is the central message that you would like to share with the people that are listening?
All right. Well, thank you, Peggy. Well, actually, you kind of just said it. We all have to ask ourselves this question: how do I want to be remembered? We have a choice. I want to be remembered as a blessing over here, or a burden over here. Now, I'm assuming, because whoever is watching right now, you're here because you really want to be a blessing. Well, that's how we can help you. And that's the central message. The world that I work in, we would call us the last responders, the people that deal with the aftermath. And that is, we have a bird's eye view on what actually happens, not what people think might happen, but actually happens. You know, and sometimes it's really sad and it's tragic, and some of the things that you just described happen way more often than a lot of us actually think. So with that in mind, what we want to do is we want to make sure our I's are dotted, T's are crossed, so that we're not a burden when we pass away. There's a little, I shouldn't say a little, there's a wonderful park nearby from where I live. It was a parcel of land donated to the place I live about 110 years ago. Well, they planted trees there, and some of those trees now are 100 years old, and they provide wonderful shade for thousands of us who go there every year. Talk about paying forward. Here is a family that donated this parcel of land to people that they will never meet. I'm a complete stranger, but I benefit from their generosity. How much more is it incumbent on me to want to do whatever I can to simplify and bless those who are going to come after me, especially the ones who care about me? That's why it's important to make sure that we have our I's dotted, T's crossed, and we're a blessing and not a burden.
And that really speaks to the legacy that you leave behind, right?
Yeah, well, it is all about legacy. And some people say, well, I don't care about that. Well, if you don't care about that, I kind of feel sorry for you. I would have to ask you this question. So what value has your life been? And we don't want to go down that road. Even if I didn't start well, I can still end well. And that's what we can help you with.
And so what is the process then? How does this all start? First of all, let me ask you, we're in this pandemic. Are you still seeing people in person if somebody wants to sit down with you?
Yes, well, we follow all the specific protocols, of course, with distancing and masks and all that. We can meet at one of our funeral homes, or we can meet in person. So we're very strict about that. It has really been difficult. There's so many families that really want to be able to have some kind of a service or something for their family member, but they've had to put that off. So that's really difficult for them. But the question would be, why should I plan ahead? Well, there's three really good reasons. One, if you know kind of what you want, let's write it down. Let's make sure it's written down and registered. The beauty of that is, as soon as I do that, I know that my wishes are going to be followed through on. And that feels good to know that my wishes are going to be honored. Secondly, it lifts the burden off my family, my children, and whoever else that I hope kind of cares about me. Those people are all going to come together. And how awesome is it when they find out James put his plan together and it's all done. They don't have to make all those decisions that we were talking about earlier. And then even better than that, James paid for his funeral arrangements. It's all taken care of. That means that I'm not going to leave a financial burden on my family. I'm not going to stick my kids with a bill. A lot of people tell me, oh, yeah, my kids got lots of money. They can pay for mine. You know what? If COVID has taught us one thing, it is nothing is for sure.
Amen. We
need to take responsibility for ourselves, get it done. And that's why I believe everyone should have this taken care of. It's a wonderful gift that you can give, that you can give to the people who you care about the most.
So people really just need to pick up the phone and phone you. You can virtually meet them, obviously. If we're doing this recording, you can meet them via Zoom or something. You can also meet them in person.
Yes, whether it's in their home. Well, I was in a home just yesterday, walked in. I sat in the kitchen. They sat in the living room. I had my little notepad, went over the details. We put it all together. It was great. Now, I'm a huggy kind of a person. I usually say, that's awesome. You got this done. I'm so proud of you. Now we just wave at each other.
Yeah.
So it's all good. But I'm so proud of anyone who will take that step of just being responsible for themselves and not just saying things like, oh, the family will figure out, the wife, it'll give her something to do. Or the ultimate, which I still do get sometimes, James, why should I care? I'll be dead. Which is how do I put it? A foolish way to think about life, don't you think?
I do. So the company Getting Your Affairs in Order has representatives all over BC and Alberta, but you, James, presently serve alternatives, funeral, and cremation services at 3 different locations, all in the interior BC, right? So you serve at the Okanagan locations of Lake Country, Vernon, and Armstrong.
Yes. So if you live in the Okanagan and you're like the greater Kelowna area, our office is in Lake Country. We're right by the just a little ice cream shop there, Dairy Queen.
Oh, the Dairy Queen, right.
Everybody knows the Dairy Queen.
Yeah, everybody does.
we have an office right there. You can make an arrangement. You can just call there. But if you go north, Oyama, Vernon, out to Lumbee, Cherryville, Falkland, Armstrong, Enderby, Salmon Arm, that's all our territory. We have 3 wonderful funeral homes, by the way, all privately owned by the same family. I will only work for family-owned funeral homes. That's all I've ever done. And Alternatives has always been right out there, treating families with regard and respect. And we offer simple cremations right up to full funeral homes. That's we offer full services from one end of the spectrum to the other. So what we do is we just get together, call, make an appointment. You can come into the office if you want, or I can come to your home. I got wheels, and we'll sit down. If you have the coffee pot on, I'm totally okay with that. And so what we do is we sit down, we write down your personal information. That's so critical because the vital statistics sheet that we fill out for you means that when you do pass away, the death is then registered with the province, and we can issue the death certificate from that. Nobody can do anything or lift a finger until that is actually done. So why not register your information ahead of time? Why make your family have to do that? Like if I was to tell my kids to do that for me, they probably wouldn't know. That's why I already did it, so they don't have to. And they're going to thank me one day, I'm pretty sure, after I'm gone. And then secondly, figure out exactly what you want. We put it into a contract. We write it down so there's no confusion, no assumptions. People make assumptions all the time about these matters. And let's remember, this is from James, assumption is the lowest form of knowledge. Think about all the times that you assume something and you thought later, okay, that was a mistake. This is the worst time to assume that everything's done and then you find out it wasn't. We find that out over and over again. And then finally, getting it paid for means we're not going to leave a bill behind. And we can put people on little payment plans. It costs less than you think. We can talk about that. The point is we need to get together and talk. You're going to have questions. By the way, I've heard everything over 34 years, so just try me. Let's talk. We can work out a plan for you, and at the end of the day, you can say the same thing that I can. When my day comes, my kids, all they know is call this phone number and everything's taken care of. You know what? I feel really good about that, and that's what I want my clients to feel as well.
Wow. James, thank you so much for your time. The credo that you have, the line that we opened with, James declares, planning your funeral or cremation ahead of time is the greatest final gift anyone can give. And you've just given us a whole bunch of information that supports that. You're passionate about what you do. I respect you. I was so glad to spend this time with you today. And I know that people are going to call you for more information. James' number is running along the bottom of the screen. James, thank you so much for your time today.
Total pleasure. And hopefully we'll talk again soon.
We will.
Okay.
Great. That is so awesome. So what I'm going to do here is explain to you guys some of the other options that we do with the families. It's part of our mission to bring peace of mind to loved ones during that devastating time. So just give me 2 seconds while I can bring this up for you. Now let's see. I'm not too sure if you guys are able to see that. Let me see. All right, let's go back to the screen share. I'm hoping you all can see that. Oh my goodness, hold on here. Okay, so when it comes to the other products that we do offer, one is called the Final Document Service. And this is actually for your executors. And this actually, let me just turn on my camera here. Okay, so this is for your executors. And what happens here is that when someone passes away, typically the executor is responsible for calling everywhere to cancel accounts, and the list kind of goes on. And in this case, what happens is that your executor contacts one number, and they will get all the information from the executor, and they review over 300 items. So this is going to be things like your CPP, Canada Revenue Agency, citizenship, passports, memberships, like if you're a member with Costco, life insurance, the list kind of goes on. And they also offer this identity theft. This is a protection after death. So they do all those documents. They then complete the paperwork. They send it out to your executor. Your executor signs off on it. They will then photocopy it because they need one for themselves. And then they put it in the mail. And on top of that, they send your executor an envelope with stamps on it. Completely dummy proof, let's just say, because of course, during that devastating time, and how that came about was that they were doing this program before, and the executor sent out all the letters without a stamp. And this is why they just want to bring peace of mind. So they make that process easier. Another product that they offer the families is called a worldwide travel protection. And pretty much how this works. So first of all, we all hopefully have travel insurance. And how this works is it works with your travel insurance. So what happens here is that if you were to pass away while on vacation, and you don't even have to be on vacation, because as long as you're 100 kilometers outside of your legal primary residence, they will then contact a funeral home where you are, and they'll then bring you back to your primary residence. So that's a one-time fee. And as you can only imagine, repatriation is a lot of money, because now you're talking about two different funeral homes on both ends. There is going to be the airlines. There is going to be consulate fees. The list kind of goes on. So what ends up happening is that there'll be no out-of-pocket here. Now, with some of our travel insurance, what ends up happening is that we might have a reimbursement travel insurance. So for any of these out-of-pocket expenses, you pay for them, and then the company would then reimburse you, right? And in this case, there's no out-of-pocket. So that's how that works. So when you travel, when you enroll in this program, you get a card that you keep inside your wallet, and you share that with your family, and that's pretty much how that works. So if you want more information on that, you'll be able to express that when you do your feedback form after. All right. Now the next verse, the next voice that you're going to hear, in fact, we're going to do a commercial break. We're actually going to do a game. All right. So the next slide that you're going to see is a slide with a bunch of numbers on it. And it's going to be numbers 1 to 54. So what you're going to do is you're going to try to find the order from 1 to 54. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we just want to see how far you're going to get from going from number 1 to 54, okay? So get your fingers ready. And the next slide is going to be the numbers. So let's see how far you can get from numbers 1 to 54. So starting, let's see, starting now. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop. All right. So tell us, how far did you get from numbers 1 to 54? Now, for those who have done it, those are our results. So tell me, how did that make you feel finding numbers 1 to 54? You can write that in the chat. And that is if I could get the chat going. Here we go. So those who are not shy, how did that make you feel finding numbers 1 to 54? I see frustrated, yes. I remember when I was in BC and we were in Kelowna, and one person said, well, it was not in English. I see stressful because it seemed like it should be simple, right? Anybody else? Okay, it's okay. We won't, I won't push too much. All right, so I'm actually gonna show you how to get from numbers 1 to 54, okay? So let me just close some of these windows here. All right, so watch my pointer. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, back up to 10, 11, and you can gonna continue like that, okay? So I'm gonna give you 1 more minute and let's see how you do this time around, okay? Starting now. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. How do we do that time around? Ooh, I'm seeing some confidence with this here. These numbers are going in quick. All right. So as you can see the results, these are much, much, much better results. And pretty much, let me just stop this, sorry. Pretty much when we have our wills done, we've spoken with our families with what our final wishes are. We've done our funeral pre-planning or our cremation pre-planning. We actually leave our family a step-by-step guideline, what to do during that devastating time. So in that case, it's going to be leaving them at a peace of mind. So we are hoping that, that didn't stress you out too much at the very beginning. All right, so the next voice that you're going to have, that you're going to hear is, sorry here. Oh my goodness, is Barb. And she's going to walk through with us a few important legal points about getting your affairs in order. And she is one of our team also, and she actually is a certified executor advisor, and she is out of the interior area of BC, and she assists our families in Alberta and in BC. So let me just get this next video on, so just bear with me here.
Hi, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Barb McKay, and I'm going to be spending some time with you today talking about 3 estate documents that you must have as part of your estate plan. The first one is the last will and testament, and this is a document that comes into effect, and it will be the first document that your executor looks for after you pass away. But in the event of an illness or an incapacity, there are different documents that your appointments will be looking for. And these would be called your power of attorney documents. Power of attorney documents can be further divided into power of attorney for financial and power of attorney for health. So let's take a look a little further at these documents. The will allow you to appoint an executor to carry out your estate wishes. But your will also allows you the opportunity to appoint a guardian or guardians if you have minor children within your family. A will can also allow for you to make special arrangements. This comes into practice and into play when there are blended families and there are certain considerations that we want to give to either the children or the spouse, but that we may also have the need for special arrangements to be made for a disabled family member, or perhaps for even looking for a more specific trustee for minors. Other special arrangements that can be included in your will have to do with providing a life interest in real estate for a second spouse or a primary spouse, and then onto children. We can also create testamentary trust for minors or for young adults in our will and in our state documents. We also would have instructions for division of assets. We, of course, name our beneficiaries, and all of this conversation and all these topics are here to help increase the level of communication and the level of planning that is put into these state documents so that we can hopefully avoid the risk of court arguments. So what happens if there is no will? Well, this is referred to as dying intestate. And the first thing that generally happens is that it creates some confusion and some chaos, as people and families tend to look at, who's going to take this over? How do we start this process? Who do we contact? What do I do? That type of idea. And so these types of complications and confusion tends to add cost, and it tends to add time to the length of estate administration and the process that is included. The other consideration in not having a will is that each province has its own laws in regards to how an estate would be distributed in the event that there was no will. And this oftentimes is not a very good reflection of what you would have wanted had someone just asked you, what would you like? So we do have solutions available at Plan My Estate. And so if you haven't had a moment to visit us there, please feel free to do so. And at this point, I'd just like to ask the questions, the 3 questions that if you can answer yes to these questions. And one is, has your will been updated within the past 5 years? Do you have a reliable executor? And does your executor know where your will is? If you've been able to answer yes to all these questions, then you're definitely on the right track. But one of the things that I run into quite frequently is a misunderstanding perhaps of when to update a will, and here are some of the reasons. So if you were recently married, or if you had a marital breakdown, if there was the birth of a child, or perhaps there was a death in the family, maybe there is reason to change your appointments, or someone has maybe left the province or the country, or you've had a change in your holdings. These would all be reasons to revisit and to relook at updating your will. And this way we know that your will instructions and the most current instructions are the most current reflection of what you would like your executor to carry out for you on your behalf. Another reason to prepare your estate, of course, is probate. So probate is the process where your last will and testament is in fact deemed as the most up-to-date and valid version of your will. It's important here for people to understand that there are assets that move through the probate process, but there are also assets that bypass probate. And this oftentimes leads to a lot of the questions that I receive. When we're looking at probate and the cost of probate, it is based on each province's laws that they have, and the fees are different depending on where you are. But the other thing to consider with probate is that that is only one area of consideration. We still have assets that, whether they move through probate or they bypass probate, there can be other costs, such as taxation, of course. And so understanding how our assets will be taxed, the amount of that tax, and some of the other ancillary costs in terms of estate administration, having that information can really empower and provide your executor with the resources that they need to appropriately and in a timely fashion complete their job. The other thing is when we're looking at distribution plans and we're looking at the equitability of those, it's interesting to note that the issue of probate and assets bypassing probate can actually have a fairly significant impact on a distribution plan and whether or not it's equitable. So the executor also has a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that they are administering the estate appropriately, but they also have a responsibility to protect the estate and to protect themselves as an executor. And so sometimes there's issues there that we need to look at or at least address. We also want to make sure that a dependent's needs within a family are being adequately met in the event of a death in a family. And then we also look at things like business continuity plans. What we're wanting to look for here is whether or not the appointments that we would rely upon to make business decisions for us, are they the same people or are they different people or different appointments that we would rely upon in a personal situation. And oftentimes self-employed people don't really consider that aspect of their estate and their estate planning. And so these would be other reasons to prepare your estate. Of course, I think that there are other reasons to work with a certified executor advisor so that we can help flush out conversation and develop planning that is highly customized to your situation and your needs. So we're going to move on. So now we're going to move on to the power of attorney documents. So these documents, as I mentioned, they come into play during times of incapacity. And their purpose is really to appoint your attorney, who would be the person to make decisions for you. And it would also they really are some of the most important documents in your estate portfolio, because they're documents that must be signed while you have capacity. So this is not a document that could come into play once you've been deemed incapacitated. And sometimes, depending on the circumstances, an illness or a sickness can be so severe that that also would not be considered a time where you could have these documents created. And when we're looking at financial power of attorney, we have a general power of attorney, and this provides powers for all business or personal transactions. But there can also be a specific power of attorney that deals with special issues, and the power can be limited, granted in that document. A general power of attorney can also be enduring, and it can also be common law. And the differences between the two have to do with whether or not the authority terminates during incapacity or continues on. And the enduring power of attorney is the document that we're looking for there when we're wanting the authority to continue on during incapacity. And as the person who is signing these documents, you also have the option of granting that authority immediately upon signing the documents, or whether or not that's authority that would spring into action only when you've been deemed incapacitated. That is the most common document that we see. But in terms of estate planning, what we're really looking for is a general power of attorney that is enduring and that most likely is a springing power of attorney. During your incapacity, the power of attorney document empowers your attorney to manage your financial affairs. And here's some of the examples of what they'd be able to do. They'd be able to handle your banking transactions. They could manage, buy, sell real estate on your behalf. They could settle debts and bills and loans. And they can also deal in shares and bonds, all financial decisions that would be, of course, weighted to what the needs were of your situation during that period of incapacity. And as I just mentioned, but I want to say it again, is that this is a document that really does need to be signed while you have capacity. So then some other considerations with your power of attorney document is that you can name an alternate power of attorney, and this is often prudent in the event that your primary appointment is unable to serve for some reason. Your POA can also be compensated for their efforts if you choose to have that in your documents. You can revoke authorities, and of course there's a process that would need to be followed for that, but you can revoke them. And your POA can hire assistance if needed. So those are just other considerations that are for you to know about these documents. So moving on now to the healthcare power of attorney. When we're looking at this umbrella concept of advanced directives, this is kind of what we're talking about here. So your healthcare power of attorney can include your do not resuscitate orders, and we go through a process of talking to you about what some of those overarching larger orders would look like. And these are typically given in the event that there is a situation where there is no reasonable expectation of you recovering from. This is very different from an acute health situation, perhaps like a heart attack or maybe a stroke or something like that that's more emergent and critical. This document does not come into play for those types of situations. This document comes into play more on the chronic side, where there really is no expectation or reasonable expectation of your recovery. It allows you to provide some communication about your wishes and thoughts around organ donation, and other special instructions can be included, whether this be resulting from some cultural beliefs or some religious beliefs, but it can also be if you have been recently diagnosed with a chronic illness and there are some specific symptoms that you may experience at some point throughout that disease that you want to make sure are included in this document. So this is an important one because in the event of incapacity, you may not be in a situation where you're able to communicate your thoughts or your wishes around some of these topics to your family or to your doctor. And it's an important part of the process to be able to have your wishes communicated in this document so that your family doesn't have to be in a situation where they're being asked, do you know what this person's wishes were about organ donation or this or that? So this is the benefit of this document. Moving on, I just wanted to, I guess, conclude at this point. There's other things that I could talk about, but we got to stop at this point. Hopefully I can do some other recordings, but you can visit us at planmyestate.ca. And if you had any further questions, or there's something that I said that maybe made you curious or created other questions in your mind, please visit us at Plan My Estate and complete the free estate consult. I'd be very happy to hear from you. And also on the website, there's other information about packages and services that we offer as certified executor advisors. So on that note, I did just want to share one little bit, and that is that right now I'm reading a book called Love Your Life to Death. It is a fantastic book. It's written by Yvonne Heath, and it has to do with tying together that human elements, that concept of grief, the concept of legacy, to some of these more legal concepts that tend to not bring up warm and fuzzies. And so the best time to talk about plan and prepare for grief is when we are young and healthy, but the next best time is now. And so I'm really reading this book. It's enriching my thinking and my thought process and my practice and the clients that I work with. And so I thought that it may bring some meaning and value to you in your day. So on that note, I think it's also a great segue into the next part of the webinar. And I hope you've enjoyed our time together today. I know I have. Okay, bye.
All right, this was once again, some really, really good information. All right, so just gonna moving along here. All right. Okay, so once again, we can see that when we do have these documents and we've had the discussion with our family, it brings peace of mind to them during that devastating time. So what they've actually realized is that when there are families that have not had that discussion, who has not had their pre-arrangements done, who have not done their funeral pre-arrangement, typically, if you think about the game that we played at the very beginning, that's where the confusion comes, right? There's a financial burden on the family dispute possibly. You know, there's now the government formula that actually says where goes where when it comes to our assets. And of course, there's times that people will get things that we don't want them to get, right? And instead, it's going to be a memorial to a tragedy, as opposed to us leaving that step-by-step guideline, where now it's going to take away the confusion. The finances will be taken care of. There'll be less family disputes. Your wishes are granted. And most of all, it's now going to be a memorial to a loving relationship. So as we're wrapping up here, we're at the point where, you know, we want to be able to help you through the step-by-step process on getting your affairs in order. It's actually your 4-step process. So first of all, for all who are watching, you've completed the first step. So you have attended this educational session. We do webinars, we do educational sessions. There's times that people actually join it, like, you know, a few times to kind of get all the information, because we understand it is information overload. But you've completed step 1, so congratulations. The next step is booking a free conversation to get more information and help us understand what your final wishes are, and to help us understand how we could further help you, whether you have a will, whether you need an updated will. When it comes to those legal documents, your enduring power of attorney, personal directive, that kind of information, get an idea where you're at. And then once we get an understanding of that, we can complete your instructions for your final wishes. This is what James was talking about earlier when it comes to vital stats, and complete those legal documents. Now you're going to notice for this, we have worked with Barb. She is a professional executor, and for the webinars we actually use lawyers. Now when it comes to these legal documents, it depends on what your estate is like. Sometimes it is quite complicated, so you're gonna need a lawyer, and you can't afford not to have a lawyer. But then there's times that our estates are quite basic, and you just need someone to help you through that, and this is where the professional executors come in. All right. And then last but not least, you'll be able to finalize your complete final arrangements. This is where it's going to be for your funeral pre-planning. And for those who want to get that done at first, you know, it just totally depends up to you, because everyone is different. But those are the 4-step processes. And overall, putting a plan together today that will bring peace of mind to your loved ones in the future during that devastating time. So here is the part where you'll be able to give us feedback as to how this information session went. So once again, it's going to be this gift of the emergency kit. So between the emergency kit and the gift card for Amazon, it's worth $175. So this emergency kit has different file folders in there that you're able to put all of your important documents in, including an area for your wills, your enduring power of attorney, personal directives, those important documents, your funeral or cremation paperwork, and the list kind of goes on. So what we're going to ask you to do is, for all of those who are on your laptop, who's on your computer, what you're going to do is you're going to take out your phone and you're going to turn on your camera, and you're going to zoom into that, and the survey is going to come up. Now we're hoping that everyone on here will be able to do that. So we'll give you some time to fill that out for us. And if you're having any problems, let me just put on my comments here. If anybody's having problems with that, just kind of type it in the Q&A, or you can type it in the chat box. Okay, Margaret, thank you for your honesty. So what you're doing is that if you have your cell phone, and that is true also for those who are having problems, what we're going to end up doing is at the end of this, we are going to send out an information, and it's going to be information on this webinar, and it's also going to be information on the presenters and how to get a hold of our various representatives. And then there will be also a link to do the survey there. All right. So let's just continue going on because we see that the time is running away from us here. All right. So we just want to thank you all for joining us today. And once again, peace of mind is what we are looking for to be able to help you guys. And there's the contact details for the two presenters. And for those who need contact details with for Patrick, we'll be able to send that to you after. All right. So we want to thank you all for joining us. And just remember, stay safe and don't forget to smile. Now I'm seeing that Margaret has her hand up. Margaret, if you want to just type in there. Oh, was your hand up from before? I have all kinds of screens here. Okay. All right, so we've come to an end. Thank you all so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye now.